starting recording.
Mhm.
Okay. So, first of all, you had a minute to look at the picture, or a little while to look at the picture that I sent. Did you spend any time with it?
Well, I had a quick glimpse because it was quite clear and unclear at the same time. It was something, a lot of things. So I think I might needing your help to
Okay, well,
for
that's all right. That's all right. But what was your initial thinking about what it was?
it's connectivity. It's all everything in one. It's from empowerment to to teaching. It's for me. It's more like from leadership to education. It's all like embedded in one cloud.
Okay, good. That's see, I love to have feedback from people who don't really know anything about it and
Mhm.
who can look at it without any real knowledge at all and interpret it in their own vision, because that's really what it's about. I'm going to mute while you tell me now who you are, what you do, and why we're connecting.
Okay, cool. Who I am, that's quite a difficult question because this is the one question one always seek. But somehow, talking about the formal introduction, my name is Khurram Iftikhar. I'm basically from Pakistan. I'm currently living in Austria. I'm an engineering student, not a student anymore. I finished my master's in intelligent transport systems. I'm more like a people's person, so I have experience in sales. So it's like a weirdly good combination of sales and technical knowledge. Coming to the thing why we're connecting, like one of our mutual friend Nigel, he knows that I have the passion for education because I think my country needs a lot of work. Pakistan needs us, and at this dire time, it's not like just they needs our technicalities; they need our efforts, especially in the area of education. And as soon as I heard that there is someone who is interested in in this field, it spiked my interest, and I was intrigued, and I just jumped into it. Apart from what I have achieved, what I have done, there is something, a keen pulsating desire in my heart to do something for my homeland, especially in the education sector. And that's why I'm here in front of you. That's why am not just like representing as a professional, but as a human being. I'm keen into joining your cause. So far, that's all I know, and that's what I am. So I think if you just explain me a bit, what do you do and how you want to do it, it will be more like okay for me to express myself more.
That was beautiful, first off. And I think from what little you have said and the knowledge I've gained from you, you will understand how this fits you so well, not as a professional, but as a human being and a person with a passion. Okay. And it's interesting too that you speak of Pakistan, because I just had another discussion with a friend who has been following me, who actually visited me here in the United States from Pakistan, and
Hmm.
just had another meeting, and he said, "You must come here. You must come here." And I will share with you his video because
Hmm.
on top of his feeling that this is also the answer to how do we address the sustainable developmental goals and how we
Hmm.
can accomplish them. He also
Hmm.
invited me as his grandmother to his wedding in the fall. So
Oh, that's
I am
beautiful.
like so touched and honored because 2 days before that, I got a call from another follower and fellow think tank, a member of mine, to share with me my new grandson. And he's in India. I mean, you know, how blessed can I be, you know?
It is, indeed it
And
is.
I have a cow that I birthed in Nepal named after me. You know, life, life is good.
Life is good.
So, okay, I'll just give you sort of a brief
Mhm,
look at what it is. And I actually developed this nifty little board
mhm,
to try and help people understand that in my mind, there's one invention that happened way back in time that was really the key to what moved us forward.
mhm,
Okay. Individually with stuff we carry or whatever, and that was the wheel.
mhm,
Okay. The wheel gave us the ability now to move things forward.
mhm,
And the wheel has three parts.
mhm,
And the first part is the center, the
mhm,
hub of the part. In the matrix, that's the learner.
mhm,
Okay. And the matrix now defines a learner to know as any person or
mhm,
group of people
mhm,
who are exploring their environment to gain knowledge.
mhm,
Whether it's you and I right now exploring the matrix to get a better understanding,
mhm,
or it's a company or an organization that is looking now to see where they are in the direction they want to go in, or
mhm,
a community who is asking questions about where they want to go and how they want to get there, or a country. It doesn't matter.
mhm,
Okay. As long as whoever or whatever it is defines themselves, defines themselves. That's the learner. Okay.
mhm,
Now the rim is made up of what I call the learning cycle. Now, the learning cycle basically in our education system globally is we teach, we test, we teach, we test, we teach, we test. You fail, you leave. You don't fail, and sometimes it doesn't matter anyhow because you don't have the skills to be successful when you graduate at whatever level you graduate at. So, okay. In the matrix, we say learning cannot happen if you do not ask questions. Kids, before they go to school, ask questions all the time when we put them off a lot of the time. But really what they're doing is they're trying to gain knowledge. And all we do is tell them instead of letting them explore and ask those questions so they can then start to learn and find the answers to their questions. So you have to start asking questions. And we stop allowing our kids to ask questions when they enter into the education system. Okay. And that's well known. It's in you can read about the fact that how many questions do kids ask as 3-year-olds, and what's the percentage of questions being asked by 4th grade. And as a teacher, usually the questions I know I get are, how many pages does it have to be? Does it have to be double spaced? Well, you know, how do we, right? Okay. Whatever the questions are, the questions have nothing to do with what they might get out of it, but how do they satisfy what they want me to see that they get out of it? But here, we've got to ask questions, and then we answer or we find the answers to our questions. What do we do with the answers to our questions? We don't sit with a piece of paper or whatever. We're expected to create and do something with the knowledge that we're gaining. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're starting to walk as a little child, you begin to get up and you're learning how to do it. And when you start to take those first steps, you are creating and showing
mhm,
the education that you got. And by doing that, you are what I believe knowledge is about, is giving back. It's
mhm,
give back.
mhm,
So we ask questions to find our answers, to do something with them, to create, to give back. And we go through levels of mastery, not mastery.
mhm.
We go through those levels of mastery. Oops, and this is at my outside ring and I have it on the inside. So let me just kind of move these little guys And, or maybe not. No, it's okay. So that's our outside ring. Now, as you see, the hub and the learning and gaining knowledge is not connected.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have the spokes to connect them. And our first spoke and the first ones that are resources to gain knowledge and to learn and answer our questions are families and parents.
Mm-hmm.
Or the learning
Indeed.
environment that we're raised in. Doesn't matter. Can be an orphanage. It still is our first experience and our first resource in learning.
Mm-hmm.
Our second resource in gaining the knowledge we're seeking is our peers.
Mm-hmm.
Second group that begin to come in very early on, and it's our peers that we begin to also learn from. Yeah, no, you have to master the art of putting these on here.
Yeah, peers are hard.
And the third, yeah, the third is educators. Now, this is another term that Matrix changes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about teachers because I was a teacher trained to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are trained to tell. Educators learn how to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Educators learn how to watch. And then educators know how to share the knowledge based on what they're seeing and hearing to help the learner find the answer. Also, we define an educator as any person who has knowledge that they can share and give back to others. Okay? So, as an educator, how many people in your community have knowledge and the ability to share that knowledge with the learners so that they also can have the same types of skills early on that are necessary for continuing their learning? Now, community, I feel, is very important. They're very important. And last but not least, of course, are our global citizens. Our global citizens. We notice that the resources all touch the learning. And if I wasn't so clumsy, they also touch the learner. And again, this was kind of a picture in my mind and a thing that I thought might happen, but what I did was I took a pen and took a photo and photographed it and took a pen and just held it, okay? And this is what I got.
Yep. Now quite clear to me.
There's our wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if everything is working and hitched up together, then anybody who sees this and everybody who sees this understands that this learner, whatever it is, will move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But what else happens? Families and parents move forward, peers move forward, educational systems and educators move forward, community moves forward, and so does the global world move forward. However, are we moving forward? Are we moving forward? And do communities in general feel like they're moving forward and things are getting better, or at least at a standstill, not getting worse? What about our country? How is Pakistan feeling? I've been in India. I know how the people are feeling. It isn't the people. I know many people in Pakistan. It isn't the people.
Mm-hmm.
In my travels to Africa, it isn't the people.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a people, we all really want the same thing. And in fact, we have been given all the same thing in the called the 17 Sustainable Developmental Goals,
Mm-hmm.
which are there to try and save what we have of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Question is, are we moving forward from 2000? I don't think
Slowly, and really not smoothly.
no. And I don't really think that we're moving forward. In fact, I think over the last few years, we are beginning to flatten out. And
Mm-hmm.
I foresee that we will go backwards. Why? Economically and socially, we have just about, and because of the mindset of the picture of many of the families in some of the countries, we've kind of taken parents and family out of the picture.
Agreed. Agreed.
Parents and family are a huge and important piece to the whole counseling and mentoring system within the education system and learning of the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We want to empower them to watch and learn from their kids, not direct them into what they want them to be. Peers, we spend now a fortune on developing curriculum
Mm-hmm.
to teach peers empathy and working together and
Mm-hmm.
the problems of bullying and why it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is the problem of bullying the problem of our children, our peers in school that are there? Is it their problem? Is it them that are doing it? Or is it in fact a social disease?
It is social disease.
Something you can spend as
Mm-hmm.
much money as you want and continue to give it to our governments who are really behind those that are developing the curriculum to teach and train kids not to bully. But they see it in every country, everywhere, every day. How can you tell them not to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Unless they understand that the connection, because they are not only the peer, but others are peer to the learner who is them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I undermine this person so that they can't move forward, what do I really do to me?
Mm-hmm.
And when we start to begin to see our goals are the same and we want to be successful and we want to be sustainable, they understand that, but we aren't allowing that. I think one of the most terrific pictures that I saw was when a friend sent me from India where they were taking a test, one of their final tests, and they had boxes over their heads. Boxes over their heads. Okay. We have teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tremendous resource of educators that we don't use. All we use are teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have it, but it's not real strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to really say that that's attached to the learner yet. Community has so much disengaged themselves in thinking they have a responsibility or an importance,
Mm-hmm.
or an importance to the learning of whoever that is. But when they begin to see that they are also the learner,
Mm-hmm.
and they begin to learn more about and fulfill their needs and what it is that they want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And this becomes very strong. But we aren't allowing it or empowering it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And for so very many few, we can connect them to some, but so many do not have, and this is our biggest holdup in all of my projects, we don't have the computers,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have the printers, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the video camera, and we don't have the internet. If we had those four things, for
Mm-hmm.
every center that we started, we would be able to put them and give them the ability to be a matrix school.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. Okay. But they don't have it. And so many of those that do have it, it's so regulated and directed by the system that to really have the opportunity to explore and learn from other people and places and kids around the world, it's not really there. But I've seen the power of what happens when it is.
Mm-hmm.
When it is there, it's very strong to whatever that learner is and that connection back and forth. So you see, unfortunately, we're trying to move forward with a really dysfunctional wheel.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to solve the sustainable developmental goals if we don't allow the creativity and the thinking of our kids who are asking the questions and we're telling them our answers?
Mm-hmm.
And even when they do come up with some solution and do something wonderful, people in power downgrade them and say it's not important. Rather than us taking these kids and these people and pulling them together to make one strong force that can then develop an organization or a structure of an educational learning system that is connected to
Mm-hmm.
all pieces for all people. Because we know that all of us we are all members of a family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, either as a parent or a child. And we are all peers, every one of us.
True.
Every one of us is an educator.
Indeed.
And we are members of so many different types of communities.
Mm-hmm.
But we are all members of community.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we're really all global citizens, even those that can't be and the wannabes. We are now global citizens.
Mm-hmm.
But most important, what I'm saying, we are an individual exploring our environment to gain knowledge, to be able to be successful and sustainable in a peaceful and humane society. We are all. Every time I share the matrix with anybody, what I've done is I have now connected us.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I will give back from you and learn from you more.
Mm-hmm.
And we are peers and we are learners working together.
True.
And my matrix is now part of your matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a brief explanation of what the matrix is. And then, eventually I hope to do real trainings. We want, you talk about marketing. What do you
Sales.
what do you think about what the matrix is, what it says, and do you feel it has any power to be able to do anything and move things forward?
Paul, can you repeat it? What you just said?
Yeah. Now that you have a little introduction to the matrix
Mhm.
itself, what do you feel about it now? Do you feel it has any merit to the movement forward?
Well, before explaining my point of view, I think let's spin the wheel of time back to the dawn of intelligence. We sapiens, when we evolved into Homo sapiens, the first thing we had was a question. I think, in my opinion, how we evolved to this thing, like we were animals like other animals. Then we started questioning things. And one additional thing, we had imaginations, the things we could see which other can't. There were other animals like us, like from lions to elephants. They were beautiful in their own circle. But we, Homo sapiens, we human beings, we could imagine things. We could imagine, okay, what if, you know, one day we can reach the sun or something like this? And this thinking and these questions resulted into, I don't know, drawing, literature, science, and everything. I don't know when and where we stopped questioning. Because at a certain stage of time, we were provided with so much information that we just decided that it's enough. We don't have to explore more, even though we might have explored a fraction of this universe. In this field where you started was a question, and for me, it's one of the basic cell of this whole organism is when you question and you have a right to question, and your question is not just given by predefined answer, but it can also be heard and understood and then answered. It's important. Our educational system kind of stopped at a certain stage. As I'm an engineer, so in engineering field, you are still exploring. It's one of the fields where you are still exploring the unknown territory, where you invent new things, where you have time to imagine things and say it out loud, which might seem magic to other worlds, and then you bring that magic into reality. But I think this should not be happening at the age of master's level or someone when you reach at 30. This should be happening at the age of 3, when your kid can just draw a unicorn of its own. This is something. And all these things, like I was lucky enough to attend a couple of meetings in United Nations about this SDGs. I have met many people, many prestigious people who are working rigorously on this SDGs. um, and you was right, this family bond is slowly breaking out. This technology has brought miracles, but along with these miracles, somewhere we have forgotten our values too. We've forgotten our bond as a whole, like as a whole family, human being as a family, as a species. We have divided ourselves in a lot of creeds and colors. Somehow, this is another discussion.
No,
But
it's
if
not.
we can pull,
No, it's not another discussion because understand,
Mhm.
in what way does the matrix discriminate?
Well, this matrix doesn't discriminate. That's the beauty of this matrix. That's why I really liked your presentation. I really liked your presentation or everything. This all stuff, because if we can put all the bricks together, all the pieces of this puzzle together, we are not just can we will become again one unit, and it's really easy to move forward, although it requires a lot of effort. And there are certain places where personally, like as an individual, I'm working on, not just on myself but around me. It's really important to work on. Everyone has to work on these things. um, especially at, when you started giving a presentation, you at the end, you reached at a point which is called global citizen. The concept of global citizen must to be understood. It's really important how you can identify yourself as global citizen. Global citizen comes with global responsibilities. Global citizen comes with responsibilities like at this time I'm sitting in Europe or somewhere else. I have responsibilities. What's happening in States? Because this is my globe. This is my globe. I own it. I own this Mother Earth, and this Mother Earth owns me. It's although we have divided in borders, but still there are some certain responsibilities which I'm sharing. And if everyone will be sharing it, life will be quite easier for all of human beings. For me, so far, what I understood, it's really beautiful thinking. It's really beautiful, concept. Um, I I not only appreciate it, I like I loved it. And although every part of it requires enormous efforts, it's not like just some efforts. It's like enormous collective efforts. Individual efforts, they are necessity, but it's as a community we have to work a lot. Somehow I will be happy and I will be lucky if I can take part or I can participate in any of it. So now I understood how this wheel is and how we can move forward. Now I will be really happy if you can explain me how we are moving forward with this wheel.
Um, well, first of all, let me say I'm thrilled. Um, I need to say, since this is going to be a public video, I have to say thank you to Nigel, because I've been traveling since 2015 when this first came to me as a concept, which I thought first off was a way to develop individualized curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
and did use it in a virtual school back in 2014. And that's when I first hitched up with a group of children in Kibera, the ghettos in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
when I began to see the power of how we can empower. You should see where the school is now after 5 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's very powerful, and it's very approachable. But in the 5 years, it's changed by the people who have used it and seen it into a philosophy and a way of thinking, and understanding that we need to start asking questions. Here, is what we're doing working? And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, what do we do to take the picture, that slide picture that's been implanted in our heads over hundreds of thousands of generations, I believe, of how do we change that picture into one of understanding that, in fact, no matter how you want to break us apart,
Mm-hmm.
and how much science you know, and I'm not science, and I'm probably, I'm not highly educated like so many I work with, but I do not believe anything can come from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something has to start it. And I don't care what you call that something, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, started one thing. You started one thing. And from that, it grew the other things. But unfortunately, those other things don't understand that they're killing each other off. And one can't survive if they don't have all the pieces there to gather what's necessary to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And that one thing is dying.
True.
And I don't think people see
Mm-hmm.
how quickly it is happening,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
True.
And as I told Wasif, my other friend in Pakistan who has UN connections, I have wanted to take this to the United Nations
Mm-hmm.
for a few years, but don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have a documentary film coming out
Mm-hmm.
that was done by Indian producer and director Shaizen Asif. He's won 10, 11 international film awards. He's done a documentary on the Matrix. And
Wow. Mm-hmm.
um, so the thing is, though, nobody knows who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody understands what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now in the last 5 years, everything that I have done, I have sponsored and paid for. So I have pulled back now and said, you know, somebody gave this to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've done whatever I can do with this the best I can. Now I need to have the help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's Nigel who came in and said, whoa, I didn't really realize what it was you were trying to do. This is something that we need to gather the resources together.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we do that? How do we get it? It is a huge thing. Who do you train? Who do you work with? When I go to a country and I work with a group or an organization or whatever it is that I'm working with, I always, particularly in the schools, always start with families and
Mm-hmm.
parents, and then we do the whole community thing. Because in the end, you have to understand who they are and where they're
Mm-hmm.
coming from and
Mm-hmm.
what they see they want to have. So, do you know what I do when I work with people to come up with a plan using the matrix?
I know.
Yes, you do. You think. What's the biggest thing that all of my trainers need to know how to do when they use the matrix?
So what could it be? Kind of.
What could it be? What could it
Mm-hmm. Explore. Mm-hmm.
be? I ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I ask questions so that they first, whoever it is, has the opportunity to define who they are and what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's that center hub. And as whoever it is starts to define who they are, my questions, you see, I don't know anything about the organization, the company, the person, the family. And so I have no restrictions on my curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
see, which is what we have lost or which has been restrained because it isn't appropriate to be curious and ask questions like, Mommy, how come that lady over there is so fat? Oh my goodness, how could you possibly say that and embarrass me in front of everybody? You naughty, naughty
Mm-hmm.
child. Is a child naughty?
There are so many chains around from society to religion. There are like so many invisible chains around us which stopped us from exploring more.
What we
I have
need
come
to
from
do is we need to help them change the picture. I went to a big assembly of parents and families of a school that they were thinking that they wanted me to come and be a director of to we're still trying to be able to develop matrix schools. Matrix
Mhm.
schools, okay. So that people can see how they work. And they're so simple. They're so simple and they're so much less expensive. But anyhow, so I'm talking to all these people, and I'm talking about how in the Indian culture, having lived here for a couple of years, it's very interesting to see how early you predetermine what your child's going to be. I mean, we all kind of say, you know, at birth, oh, my little kid's going to be this or that, you know. Okay.
Mhm.
And they didn't understand what I was saying. But there was a lady not too far, and I move around when I do any of my stuff, you know, not too far towards the middle of the front. And I went up and I said, I see you're pregnant and you're having a baby. Congratulations. When do you do? And she said shortly. And I said, so what's he going to be? And she said, he's going to be a doctor. He's going to be a doctor. What if she doesn't want to be a doctor? That was all I had to do. Pause and ask, what if she doesn't want to be a doctor?
Mhm.
And they suddenly realized what I was talking about.
Mhm.
Does that change it? No. Because you have to then get them to understand doing that isn't working.
Mhm.
Doing that is putting false expectations and pressures on the children to live up to your expectations, which they'll never ever feel competent of doing, which is why so many of the kids are dropping out of the schools and committing suicides in India, because they're never going to be successful in the eyes of the system. But of course, they can be so successful in the eyes of learning,
Mhm.
you know. And so you have to work with them. And we already talked a little bit about the peers.
Mhm.
If we begin to allow peers
Mhm.
to help each other find the answers to the questions and to solve problems together, one of my most favorite organizations is an organization called Destination Imagination. Have you ever heard of it?
No, it's the first time.
Well, I use a lot of the techniques of Destination Imagination just in what I do in my learning because I think it's fun. And it also teaches us to be able to understand that as a group, our goal is to be successful. And
Mhm.
that depending upon the problem, if we understand our group well enough, we know who to put up in front of us to lead us to be successful and when to step back. And Destination Imagination is an organization, and it is global. And it comes up once a year with 5 challenges that schools can be involved with. And then they also have something called instant challenges.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'll give you a real simple example of an instant challenge. And it might bother me, I can stop. But I had to be a judge at one of the state competitions
Mhm.
for an instant challenge. And I had to be, I did it for the young, what they call rising stars. So these are the kids that are 4, 5, 6-year-olds. And the rules are once you do the challenge, you cannot reveal what the
Mhm.
challenge is or anything about the challenge until the challenge has been run everywhere, the destination globally. Okay, until then
Mhm.
it's not revealed. So it's mum. And the challenge was that they were given certain materials. And
Mhm.
from the materials, they were to create an animal or a character, and
Mhm.
to understand the habitat of who it was and what it was and the needs, and be able to communicate that to others. That was the challenge. And they had little marshmallows and gummies and
Mhm.
toothpicks and all kinds of stuff. And so they had 5 minutes to create their own little things. Okay. First part of the challenge. Second part of the challenge was to, within their group of 4, to introduce and interact with the others within their group, the animals.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, in 2 minutes, these kids would weave such a creative story involving these four, now they aren't toothpicks, and they have character, and they have heart, and they have, and at the end, they're told that they have to throw them in a bag and throw them away. Now, after as many years as I have been working, I should have foreseen it sooner. But the first group that came in and that I said, well, you need to give me them now because we need to throw them out. We had a group of hysterical young children crying. How did we not think of that?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we resolve that? What I ended up doing was I had somebody go out and get me large grocery bags, paper bags, large paper bags. And at the end of each session, each child, well, first of all, the team leader decorated the bag with the name of the team and where they came from and the date that they did it and who the children were, and they decorated the bag, while the kids were doing the project. And now each of the kids got to put their little guy into their home bag, which was then rolled up and stapled shut, and the leader had to sign a paper saying that until they received email that it was over with, the tournament was over with, it wasn't to be opened. Okay. But it all went back with the kids, and in the end, they all got their annual back. Yeah. See. Now, and that, and to think of all the learning that happened. Not only the learning by the kids, the learning that the adults should have learned from that. That we need to really watch, and we need to really listen, and we need to really follow and understand and support that knowledge that they're gaining, how important that is, and how important working as peers who work to accomplish something, and how so often when I was teaching in a classroom and I couldn't get somebody to understand what we were talking about, one of the peers would just come up and say, don't worry about it, let me go and I'll explain it to them. We just hang out for a minute. Because why? They often speak the same language.
They have a connection. Yep.
They have a connection. Hey man, this is really what she's trying to tell you. You see it every day. If you're okay, no problem. On we go. They're very powerful educators. And we have to empower them as educators and not treat them the way they're being treated, as bullies and people who are bad. And of course, we know that we want to train teachers to become educators. I would love to start getting involved in colleges that train teachers. And begin to have at least a matrix section of it. Because I believe that, in fact, it would not take 4 or 5 years to have a person become a strong educator, to be able to go out and work in the community. Okay, if they had the tools that the matrix gives them to be able to be the educator. 6 months? 6 months, maybe?
I think it seems like a
what could we do? What could we do to help all of those rural communities out there where those
Mm-hmm.
kids walk miles and miles and miles to a school to get there, and there's 50 or 60 of them all munched into one little classroom, and then sometimes not even somebody there to tell them what they want them to know.
Mm-hmm.
We
True.
could increase our educational force in a huge way if we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So to be able to create educators, and not only that, but we have within every community so many educators when we learn to use them.
True.
And there brings educating the community.
Indeed, it is. Indeed, I completely understand the concept now. It's quite clear to me how this responsibility could be and should be shared, because it's not just like everyone is learner and everyone is educator. Like, if we put it quite in its simplest form, and obviously some of us, at this time, the responsibility lies on our shoulders to bring this concept forward, so that this weight of this responsibility can be shared, and more it will spread, easier it will get for all of us. um, while talking about, because I have experience like you. I traveled a lot. I traveled so many countries. I have seen so many cultures, um, and I'm one of the lucky ones, who got the exposure for and taste of different cultures and languages, and I don't know, food and everything. But I think it's time to give back. Like you talked about this rural areas, I belong to one of this rural area where not so many schools and are nearby, and you don't have so many choice to learn, and whatever they provide you, whatever material they give it to you have to accept that. Questioning is, first of all, forbidden, and even if you question, not anyone can answer that. So you have to stick to the answers which are predefined, pre-written. So somehow, it's not like that, that not only understand, but I have experienced it. So I am looking forward to spread the word. Not just spread the word. I will put my efforts in it. Actually, I had another meeting coming up, but I will conclude in one small thing. I want to give one example. It just reminded me of something. It's just, it's one of our, in Urdu we have one of this story I want to tell you. They said, once upon a time there was a fire in the jungle, and all the animals were running. There's fire in the jungle, save your lives! Fire in the jungle, save your life! And there was a small bird. This small little bird was flying to the river, taking a drop of water in its beak, flying back and throwing on the fire. And that was going, to and through. And a fox was watching it, and he said, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing? There's a fire in the jungle. And what difference your couple of drops will make?" And the bird replied, "I am doing my part. And if you could all be doing your part, we could have stopped that fire in the jungle. We might not have to run for our lives." So somehow, somewhere, we have to do our part. And I'm looking forward to do my part in my own capacity, in my own, whatever limitations or I have, or whatever circle I have. And I'll be really looking forward to talk to you again if you will give me time again. But I'm just having a time constraint at this time. I will be there will be, like, for work there'll be a project meeting coming up in some time. Which sorry, I was late today. I was traveling out of
Oh,
Czech
you're fine.
Republic.
You're fine.
Mhm.
Now, first of all, what I'll do is I will send you the link to a video or an interview that I did with Wasif, who is
Mhm.
also in Pakistan.
Sure.
And maybe the two of you might want to hitch up. And
Perfect.
it also gives you time to just now think about you and your skills
Mhm.
and your abilities, and what you think we can do to move it forward. How
Mhm.
to do that? You know, how can you know, the overall goal is how do we connect everybody together in a way we can then redesign and remodel what's going on in our learning system? Because, as you said,
True.
there are a lot of birds
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to drop water on the fire, but we are
Mm-hmm.
too far and few in between, and we aren't connected in a way where we can take them and make them pails.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to do. We need to become a stronger and more visible
Mm-hmm.
experience. And if you've got
True.
any way to get this into the UN, I'll be there beside you.
Perfect. Perfect. So I will um, let me let me just um, compromise my thoughts. Let me make a strategy and let me think what I can do, how I can contribute. I will discuss with you we will fix next meeting. I will surely discuss with you.
Okay.
Let me put some strings, how I can make it more visible. And I think
And get back to Nigel too with your thoughts.
I will be. Like we are friends. We are friends for like 4 years. We're just like kind of we are like normally he introduces us. We are one, so we're like really good friends. So somehow I will talk to him.
Yeah, I think that's where it may all kind of start to it's been kind of simmering and simmering and simmering for a bit, and maybe Nigel's the one that's going to go and put the whatever it is.
Sure. I will need to like take off. Actually, this is like they're calling me again and again.
You need.
So I think
I want to thank you. You have given me much of your time, and I want
thank
to
you very much for this like enlightening session. And I'm looking forward to talk to you again soon.
Okay, you know where my message board is. All you have to do is let me know when. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a good evening.
Same to you too. Hope to talk to you soon.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye.